Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Sheen. I am an Oxford and Cambridge graduate currently working as a consultant, and today I want to share with you how I proceed to record a podcast. So let's get into it. First thing first, I am the host of the podcast called Dream Girl that I started more than a year ago now. Actually, it's been a while. 2 seasons are out already. You'll find them on all the usual platforms and on my YouTube channel as well. So the first season, I started it as just, audio, least barriers there in terms of recording. And I think I was still camera shy. I was not on YouTube yet. So the first season is sadly not recorded visually. But then the second season, I started doing video podcasts as well, and it's on my YouTube channel. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. But then life got in the way. I started the YouTube channel properly. I started a new job, quit the job, moved to Dubai, started a new job. So it's been a lot of things going on, but now I'm getting ready to launch season 3 of the podcast very soon. And one question I get a lot of is, how do you record your podcast? What are the things I need to think about? And especially because my podcast was an interview format podcast. So I always had someone else on where I talked to them usually about their journey, their career, and generally just to understand how, women are excelling everywhere, and just for them to share general tips and to also showcase that there are no specific pathways anymore in terms of getting to where you want to, and just the new types of jobs that exist in the world. So going back to the reason for this video is I do get asked a lot about how do you schedule a podcast, how do you edit it, how do you record it, where do you post, blah, blah, blah. And for me, all of this had been made easy because of a platform that I've used called Riverside. And this is actually pretty cool because I've used Riverside for a whole season. I recorded my remote podcast on it, and for them to now be sponsoring this video is actually very, very cool. It's like coming full circle. And I am genuinely happy to be promoting Riverside because I genuinely enjoyed using it. It saved me many times because I am technologically challenged, and also things happen in terms of Wi-Fi cutting off, and Riverside is bulletproof. So Riverside is the leading platform to record studio quality podcasts, both audio and video recordings. And of course, it doesn't have to be just podcasts, it can be anything, but it is a great tool for podcasts. It's used by over 70,000 people around the world, including Gary Vee. And I know that now they work with Spotify as well. So it's really, really cool. And for me, the best thing about Spotify is that it brings together kind of the whole value chain of producing a podcast, because you can schedule, you can record, you can edit, and even now you can post directly to Spotify. So it's very, very cool. And the best feature that Riverside has is that you can actually record locally. So when you're in the process of recording your podcast for a remote episode with someone who's not here, they have a link, but while you're recording, it's recording locally on both people's computer. So if you have a power cut, you have electricity that really doesn't want to support you, or you have a Wi-Fi situation, you don't lose any of the recording because it's recorded locally, not somewhere in the cloud. And then it has happened to me many times. And then you can just get several clips from that day, and it's, with editing, you can still bring everything together. So that's really a very powerful tool when you're recording remotely. And also generally, the quality is just incredible. The visuals are so much better than if you were recording on the other usual video communication platforms. And it is so easy to use because, as I said, technology and I don't go well together, but I found it so easy to use Riverside, and all the new tools they keep coming out with are just so easy to learn and integrate in the process. So all in all, I am so excited to be plugging in Riverside, and thank you once again for sponsoring the video. And I will tell you exactly how I use Riverside, and I'll show you clips of how I use the platform while we go forward into the video. If you'd like to check Riverside, there's a link down in the description box below, and you can use the discount code SHEEN15 to get 15% off if you decide to register with Riverside. So let's get into it. So the first thing I'd like to explore is why I do remote interviews for podcasts. So firstly, I used to really enjoy doing it in person. It is definitely much, much better to do it in person because body language makes a huge difference. You actually get to connect with a person a bit better. And also it's just, you get to hang out with them beforehand and you get to hang out with them afterwards to discuss everything. So it's definitely a whole different experience if you're recording in person. But the problem is the number of cool people that exist around the world is just incredible, right? And therefore it's a bit limiting for me to decide that I will only record if people are here in person. So instead, it's much, much better for me to say, okay, it's fine, I'll do remote recording. And, that unlocks so many more potential in terms of, I'm not limited by geography anymore. And also it kind of is easier in terms of time commitment as well from the other person, because they don't need to travel to get to you. They don't need to prep. They don't need to spend a few more hours there with you, etc. It's literally just the recording. It is at their convenience of their homes. So it just makes it a little bit easier to say yes as a guest if you're saying let's record remotely. So now, in terms of the actual process of recording the podcast, there are a few things that come into play, right? The first thing is selecting a guest. The second thing is scheduling. The third thing is actually doing the recording. And the fourth thing is the editing afterwards. And finally, you're just posting it or publishing it, whatever you want to call it. So let's get into each of these one by one. The first step is selecting a guest. For me, that's the most fun part, right? So first season, my approach was to go through my network of friends and just see, who is there that is really cool and I want to showcase. And that meant everybody. But then I had to narrow it down and take into account people's availability. But then season 2, I started reaching out to people that I was quite impressed by, that I knew of, and I've seen their work and I really wanted to talk to. And, the podcast invitation was a good excuse to actually get to talking to them and slide into the DMs. But I would say that this was the most fun part, and really trying to see what do we have in common? What do we have that's really different from each other? And therefore, how can I learn from them? What can I learn from them? And how will they add value to my audience? And how can I, why will I be interesting to them to chat to? So that's why it's like this whole process of research, and it's really cool. And then I've approached people many different ways. I either send an email, send a message on LinkedIn. I even used a lot of Instagram DMs, and these actually always worked. And it's really nice to be able to just, send a message, explain who I am, what's the podcast for, why am I interested in them, to show that, I'm not just sending copy paste message to everybody. And then we will get to scheduling if they say yes. And to avoid a lot of back and forth, I've been using Calendly, which I am absolutely in love with. It's so easy to just send them a link, and then they can choose they will see all of my availability for maybe the next couple of months, and then they can choose whatever works for them. And as soon as they choose this, they automatically get a calendar invite with all the information. And then I would usually go back to the calendar invitation and change it to add the link and stuff, but we'll get into that next. But this is in terms of scheduling. So then we're done. And my advice would be that when you are trying to schedule, try to give them at least 6 weeks of flexibility, because it's really hard for people to be available these days, and I think we can all accept that we are just overly busy. And therefore, if you're telling someone just are you free in the next couple of weeks to record a podcast, it might be a bit of a big ask, and it's easier to say no than to say can we do later, blah blah blah. So instead of being told no, just offer longer availability. And now how I use Riverside for my scheduling is I go on my dashboard, and then you can create a studio. So I already have a studio called Work Wednesday, which I've only used once. So instead of recording an in-person Work Wednesday, I once recorded a remote one with Faye recently this year, actually, if you want to check it out. But you can just create a studio, which I love to do. And then you can name your studio. So let's say this is going to be season 3, episode 1. Okay, and you see you can choose whether it's audio or video or just audio only, but I want both. And then I say set up studio for later. So that's the link now to this and everything else, and you can schedule it. So for the scheduling, you can now schedule it. Let's say we're going to say this is going to be on the 10th, and it's at 10 a.m. So that's it. So that means that it will be open at that time. and then they'll get an email with instruction to join the show, right? You can always reschedule, blah, blah, blah. And then you can add a participant. So here I can add someone, and you can choose whether they're an audience, which means that they can only listen, they won't be visible in the recording, or you can add a guest who is someone who you'll be recording with, or you can add a producer, again, someone who has access to everything, but will not be recorded as part of the podcast recording. Okay, so let's say we have this, and then if you say okay, it will add, and then you create the show, and you are done. Now, because if you put the email there, the person automatically gets the email, or you can copy paste the link and then send it to them at a later stage. The next step is to actually record. So on the day I usually log in like 10 minutes before to make sure everything is working. And you can choose whether you want to connect a webcam, your laptop camera, or a proper camera. And I usually use a cam link to connect my proper camera to my laptop. And I also connect a proper mic, usually my Rode, but you can also just use your fancy podcast mics that you also plug into your laptop, and Riverside will give you the option of choosing your camera and your mic, and it is usually advised to wear headphones so that there's no echo, so then you can wear those as well, and then you check yourself on the camera and you join the studio, and then the other person also joins. Then I usually do a little pre-chit chat, make sure everything is okay, the person is comfortable. I give a little walkthrough of how the recording will look like. And then I just press record. You have a little timer that goes on to let you prep yourself, etc. But it doesn't really matter because I usually will crop the beginning if needed. But then you get started and you do the recording. And as I said, if there's some sort of interruption in the middle, it's fine. It's all recorded locally anyway, so it's saved there, and then you can retrieve them somehow. And then you just bring them all together and you are done. At the end, you stop the recording, and it takes literally about like a minute or so for everything to be ready and uploaded. Then you don't need to worry, everything is there, and you can say bye. You don't need to keep your guests waiting for long. But that's also depending on their internet quality. There's only one time where someone was in a very far away village where the internet wasn't that good, and then we had to wait a bit for their part to be uploaded. But with normal internet, it usually will upload like this within like 1 minute maximum. It's usually within like a minute or so after we're done, it's all done. So by the time we're saying bye, everything is uploaded. Then the next step is the editing. So after you've recorded on Riverside, you will have your audio files for each person, and you'll have your video files for each person. And that means that it's up to you if you want to download all of it and you want to use your usual editing softwares to do however you want to do it, then of course that's absolutely fine. But if not, what I absolutely love is the magic editor on Riverside. So let me show you how it works. So if I go to this old Work Wednesday that I recorded with Faye, so you see I have the file here. So if I click this open, it's already here, the full recording. And you have some clips as well, some snapshots. And you see here you have the WAV file, the MP4 files for each of us, right? So let's click on edit and export. So this is, here, you can choose. So let's say if I had 4 people in the call and I just wanted 2 of them for this one or something, but you can choose which one of them you want here. And then you can choose the size if you wanted it for a story, you wanted it for a post, or you want the actual size of everything. You can choose it here, and you can choose the layout of how both of us look. So, you can either have like some sort of background or us stuck to each other, and you can have like a full frame of each of us when we're talking, with the other one becoming a smaller person or like to the corner, which is super cool, right? Look at it. I think that's really cool. This one especially, but I usually go for this format because that's the nicer one for the podcast. And you can add a background, but obviously here the background doesn't apply. That's for when you have some space in there. And you can add a logo. So I've added the logo of my podcast, and you can move it around. I usually like it to be bottom left or bottom right. So you have it here, and you can crop the beginning or the ending here, but Yes, so you can crop the beginning or the ending, and then you can export it once you're done, and you can choose your video quality and stuff like that. And I usually do this, bring them together, put the logo, and I crop the beginning or the end if needed, and I export it, and then I send it to my editor, who will then put it on Final Cut as usual. If there's anything to trim in the middle where we said something that we didn't have to say or we should not be saying, or if there were some pauses and stuff, then you can just crop these out. And then your clip is now ready. And for you to only upload the audio files as well, you can do that. You can just select and download the audio files and use your usual editing softwares to edit the audio only for your social platforms such as Spotify and Anchor. I used to use Anchor because I uploaded there and it sends it to all the other platforms for podcast. And yes, the final step is to just publish, right? And then, so I used to use Anchor for my audio podcast only, where you need to create a profile and then you can link all of the podcast platforms. I think the Apple Podcasts take the longest to sync for some reason, but then you just get approved for each of them and you can put your logo there, and you can even schedule, you can in advance, you can schedule the publish date of your different podcast episodes. And for the video ones, I obviously use my YouTube for that, but I think Spotify now has a video version as well that you can upload, and Riverside has a button as well that you can just click and it will upload it directly to Spotify for the video, which is very cool. So there you go. I hope that was helpful. I just walked you through the whole process. Of course, there are some technical difficulties that come up. There is a lot of trial and error when you are starting out, and I was there. I am still there on season 3. But I have to say Riverside made it so much easier to use, and I would strongly recommend it. If you're new to this whole world and you want to have a bit more support while you are launching your podcast, definitely strongly recommend it. Once again, the link to Riverside will be in my description box below, and you can use the discount code Sheen15 to get a discount of 15% of the membership plan. If you have any more questions about recording a podcast remotely or just generally the experience of being a host of a podcast, please leave them in the comment section below and I'll try to reply to as many as possible. And I hope you'll be watching out for season 3 of Dream Girl. I am thoroughly excited. I have actually lined up some Dubai-based guests, so hopefully it will be a mix of in-person and remote recording for season 3. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that before the end of summer we'll have season 3. But here we are, and thank you for being here. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.